Okay, so whenever Carly likes to get started, please do.
All right, I was saying when I first logged on that today my computer crashed. And so I'm hoping that the technology works. I had to spend the day setting up my new computer, learning all that. So I'm going to share, let's see, my PowerPoint. So thank you for being patient. There we go. Can everybody see that? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to get it to go. All right. Let me check. I don't think I can get it out of this mode, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and go. So thank you, Diana. My name is Carla Barnes, and I am a licensed professional counselor in Texas. And I've been practicing as some kind of counselor since 2003. So I'm going on my 21st year in this industry. And in 2016, I did a DNA test. I had spent years researching my family. I had the old school family tree maker with the dial-up, and my uncle had done his DNA test through Ancestry, and I wanted to do mine as well. So it came back and didn't match anybody on my dad's side of the family, including my uncle who had already done his test. And so I emailed Ancestry and said, "You got this wrong. What's going on?" And they emailed back and said that I needed to talk to the family who raised me. And so I did. I found out that I'm an NPE, and my biological father is my mom, and my birth certificate father had separated for a bit. She hired an attorney, and my biological father is that attorney that she had hired for the divorce. My mom ended up getting back together with my birth certificate father, and that's who I thought was my dad. And so I've been on this journey since 2016. I actually just had my first reunion with BioFamily in Denver at the conference because my first cousins live in Denver. So it took quite a bit of years. That's 8 years till well, I'm having some feedback. Can y'all hear me? Have y'all been able to hear me? It keeps saying mute and unmute.
Yes.
Okay.
I had to
So-
mute a few people. Everybody
Okay.
else has to mute.
Okay, thank you, Diana. So no contact with bio father. He wants no contact. He knows about me, received my letters, and it's been an emotional roller coaster, I will say. I know from the beginning, it was pure shock, anger, lots of soul crying, numbness. There's some relief in this story, and it's been a healing journey. And so in 2019, I decided to add helping other individuals, a part of these communities, to my counseling practice. And so I see individuals in the practice to help them find out, what's their next steps in this journey, and what does this mean for our identity and who we are as a person, and learning to trust again and things like that. And I'm sure all of you can have something similar to what I've already mentioned from your community. And so I feel honored to be here today. And, part of all this has been making meaning of my story. And making meaning is a big part of healing and advocacy. And so that's why I'm here and doing what I'm doing. And so, I named this presentation, Unsticking Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts. And the reason why I chose this topic is because in my therapy practice, I see clients dealing with anxiety, depression, sleep issues, and I think intrusive thoughts is in the top 5. It's right up there. And it's hard. It impacts our sleeping, our wake hours, and I think it's an important topic. I think it's something that we don't talk a lot about. I haven't come across it in any workshops or conferences outside of any psychological mental health for providers, and so I chose that topic. Now, I will say this talk today is not from Carla Barnes' brain. It is from this book, Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts. It's a great read. It's a short read. It's made for the lay person. It's not made for professionals only. And I think the most complicated part of it, it talks about some brain stuff that we'll talk about, but it's not even complicated. And so it's a really good book. And so kudos to these authors. They have some videos on YouTube about this stuff that can help us be free from these thoughts that come to our mind. Today, when I talk about thoughts, I've also done some work about beliefs, negative beliefs that we've adopted. And those sometimes get in the way of our behaviors because we come to think that it's true. And in our dealings with bio families, raising families, friends who don't get it, we can have thoughts and negative beliefs about who we are as a person, that I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough. And I really think those negative beliefs start from the thought cycle that we start to develop when we're triggered or somebody says some comment to us. And so today, when I talk about thoughts, you can substitute that with negative beliefs because I think there's a relationship, a correlation between those two that shift our moods and impact how we feel about ourselves and how we interact in this world. And so when part of this title was unsticking these thoughts, so sticky thoughts are thoughts that when we have them, they don't just pass through and go away. They stick around for some reason. And they return, they cause us stress, it's worrisome, and they get stuck in our brain in a thought cycle. When you look at science, genetics plays a role in intrusive thoughts, but also the level of stress that we have in our lives as well. And so what I want you to know is that most thoughts that we have are junk. They don't have great importance, especially the importance that we place on those sometimes. When we get an email, spam email, we're really good at being able to read something and say, oh, that's junk, and then let's put it to the trash. And so I want us to begin thinking about our thoughts in the same way. Once we receive the thought, the message, the thought email, it's like, is this junk or is this true? Is this a fact or is this just because I was triggered and our protective measures are kicking into place to keep us safe? And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So the basic message of today is that words
Peter
are
Owen.
just words.
Jack.
And
Ruxin.
and that when words come our way, they don't have to stick. What makes them stick is if we apply some kind of meaning to our words.
Alex told me that she got an invitation. She didn't know who it was.
Here is a shirt, and it's an ordinary shirt. It's a shirt that I bought about 3 years ago. And I'm a truth teller, and I've learned how important truth telling is in the business that we're in because of people didn't tell us the truth sometimes. But so I actually own this shirt, but it's in green. But it looks like this. It says those words. And it's a pretty reliable shirt. I can wear it to run errands, to clean the house, to take a nap on the couch. I've probably worn this shirt 30 times. And I bought this shirt because a good friend of mine, her friend was the shirt vendor. And, they shared it. And I looked at it and I was like, ooh, I love reading. I love books. So I'm going to buy this shirt. Well, about 2 years ago, my friend and I had an agree to disagree time period that eventually led to our friendship breaking up. And so, I love this shirt and I kept wearing it. But for the last 2 years, every time I put this shirt on, within a few minutes, my friend's face popped in my brain. And then the next thoughts were of our disagreement. And then my mood would shift to sadness and then anger. And then I would remember other details. And I would get stuck in this thought cycle of the past that had nothing to do with what I was doing. And it would go through the whole morning routine of this thought cycle of all this negative stuff. Well, Monday, I put on this shirt and something different happened. Immediately, my friend's face, my former friend, her face popped in my brain. And then the next thought happened, a negative thought about that experience. Without me guiding my brain, taking initiative, guiding my thoughts, it popped in my brain. It's just a shirt. It means nothing. It's, you like this shirt. And I was like, oh. And I think this happened because, I've been preparing for this talk for a couple weeks now, and I reread the book. I read it a long time ago, but I reread the book, and I've been putting into practice what we're going to talk about today. And that's the goal here, is to help our brain understand that the thoughts that come our way, the negative beliefs that come our way, don't have the power that it thinks it has. And there's a reason why our initial thoughts and negative beliefs behave the way they do, to protect ourselves from danger. But generally, once the thought passes and the negative belief processes through the cortex of our brain in a logical manner, we realize that's not facts. We are safe. We're in the present. Those things aren't true. And so we're going to work to have a different perspective on our thoughts so they don't get stuck in our brain and shift our mood, that we don't adopt them into our identity. And we're going to work to have less distress from these things that just come our way. All right. So understanding intrusive thoughts. The thing is, everyone has thoughts, intrusive thoughts. And we try to control some of these thoughts, but research actually shows we can't control what initial thoughts come into our brain. It's part of our psychological experience. And most of our thoughts are automatic. They're not under our conscious control. Now, there's a whole nother research about subconscious and all that. But feelings aren't facts. They can't be trusted. And we need these thoughts to come our way, intrusive thoughts. Like, look at human creativity. How many times have you been doing something and then all of a sudden you have this great idea? Or I know what to get that person for Christmas, or this should be my next topic for that article, or I need to call the doctor and figure this out. Thoughts come our way. They're not always negative. So I wanted to point that out because today we're talking about these thoughts that don't make us feel good. But we need our thoughts to come because that's how we are creative, and it's the foundation of our passions and who we are. But we all have them. We all have these thoughts. Having negative thoughts, by the way, doesn't make you a bad person. Sometimes we think, why did I have that thought? Because it's not who I am. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So in research, there's something called the ironic effect. What we resist persists. And so what happens is intrusive thoughts become an issue because they get stuck. And we're disturbed by our thoughts and our negative beliefs, and we don't want them. We want them to go away. We want them to stop. And sometimes we get obsessive about these things. And, we think somebody believes something about us. And then is that true? And then we start to adopt those things that can impact our self-esteem. And the more energy we put into these thoughts and these negative beliefs, the more entrenched they become. And that has to do with some brain science we'll talk about. And so trying not to think about something often makes it more persistent. It creates anxiety, and these thoughts and negative beliefs attach feelings and emotions to it, and then build neural pathways in the brain as if they're true, as if these negative beliefs and these thoughts are warning and danger. And it becomes a whole thing when we're really just trying to forget about it and make them go away. And many of us have experienced abandonment, betrayal, social rejection, family rejection, and all these experiences set off alarms that we're not safe, we're not okay, shifts our mood, attach negative feelings, and then it becomes as if this is the reality all the time. And our brain is preparing itself to protect itself from future rejection, future abandonment. And so that is why it's on high alert, hypervigilance, looking out to protect yourself, looking out for warning signs. Maybe next time I'll know, maybe next time I'll trust my gut. Pay attention, see all those warning signs. But the reality is we're not always in those situations. And so our brain is good. We need our brain, but sometimes it doesn't do what's best for us, I suppose, as I'm sitting here thinking about it. And so when you look at the negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts, unwanted thoughts that come our way, and the negative beliefs, what we need to understand is that the content of those are not what's important. It doesn't define who you are. And the reason why these thoughts and negative beliefs are so worrisome is because they're in contradiction to the values that you have and what you believe. So if you hear something and it's aligned with what you believe and who you are, you're going to be like, not a big deal, positive or negative. But if it's something that is opposite of who you believe yourself to be, that is when it causes an internal conflict and can be the next step to helping that thought, that negative belief to be stuck in our brains. And so the key here is to not to try harder to stop the thought. In psychology and cognitive behavior therapy, they talked about thought stopping as a technique in the past, but research is showing that it's not that beneficial because of the ironic effect. The more you think about it, thought stopping, that it still continues to persist. And so the more energy you feed to your thoughts, the more pathways in your brain are developed, and the more it becomes a reality. So thoughts don't matter. Thoughts that don't matter, they have no power. It's like that spam email that comes your way. It has no power over you. It's just a spam email, someone trying to take advantage. And so you have to filter it out. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit of the brain's role in intrusive thoughts. And this is important to understand because the way the brain functions in response to a trigger that is upsetting or worrisome stops us from being able to have initial willpower into stopping or changing our thoughts. And so what happens is we have a trigger, whatever that might be, and it releases adrenaline that causes an anxious state. The amygdala fires, and it makes the feeling that you have feel as if it's real, as it's an action. Like it's happening right now in the present. And feelings like you feel you're trapped or you're anticipating rejection, anticipatory anxiety is a real thing, or having doubts, all those feelings and triggers affect our brain to fire that adrenaline to get us ready to respond to this perceived threat. And so what happens is that intrusive thoughts get coded as danger in our brain, and it keeps our focus on it, and those triggers become a danger alarm. Here's the thing about our amygdala. It is made to be triggered with the slightest hint of danger. And it's rather to set off those alarms that something's wrong and create a sense of fear that encourages us to behave a different way to protect ourselves, to remove ourselves, than to miss one situation that really is in danger. So it's overreacts to protect ourselves. You know, our brain, our bodies were originally designed in that primitive state with lots of environmental dangers, trying to find food. Now, I mean, we go to the grocery store, we go to Amazon, we can have things delivered, we have heat, air conditioner. We're very blessed now in our society to have all our needs met. And so the way our brain functions doesn't match all those perceived dangers, when in reality, it's we're a lot safer in the states that we live in. And so when there is a trigger, there's two routes that is signaled. The first adrenaline route is sent to the amygdala, which bypasses the thinking part of our brain, the cortex. And it goes and it shoots out the adrenaline. It's like 911, 911, something's wrong. And so it's like a big emotional feeling. And then it also sends a second message that goes through the thinking part of our brain, the cortex. And that is more delayed than the first message. And so this is why it is so important to understand the way the brain works in processing perceived triggers and danger and threats and hurt feelings, because it is filtered through the amygdala, which has nothing to do with willpower, the facts, or what we know to be true. So we have to learn to pause and wait for that message to be fired through our cortex before we fully understand what this trigger really means. And so the brain, you know, it's an amazing thing, and there's so much research that shows that we can make new neural pathways, and we just have to understand the way it works so that we can not let those first messages shift our mood or put us in a hypervigilance where we think those are the true and reality of situations. Let's see. Is there questions along this way? I mean, I know everybody's muted, but if there was questions, Diana, you would tell me, right? Or is that at the end?
Yeah, at 8 o'clock, we will
Okay.
go off record and they have questions, but if there's anything they want to put in the chat box, please feel free to put it in the chat.
Okay.
And we'll also go over those too.
Yeah, so as a therapist, I'm so used to back and forth. So thanks for hanging in with me as I just talked through this. And so if you have questions, let me know. And so I've talked a little bit about how everybody has thoughts, and some of the thoughts we don't want, they become sticky in our brain. We attach feelings and emotions, negative feelings and emotions that make it that makes it come back and easily trigger, just like that shirt situation I talked about. I mean, imagine like 30 times I had this thought cycle going on until I've done this work again recently. And so what I want to shift to is talking about some strategies to help us with these negative beliefs and these unwanted intrusive thoughts, and see if I can give you some tools to help you when they come your way. So the first strategy is we have some voices in our mind, we to ourselves to make meaning of what's happening, what we're experiencing. And there's three voices that we could use, or how we approach our thinking. And usually the worried voice comes first. It's the anxiety provoking voice, questions and statements we say in our mind right after a trigger. And it's seeking reassurance, like, what if, what does all this mean? This is bad. I'm not good enough. And this is where we start saying our negative beliefs about ourselves. So we have this worried voice going on. And then what happens is we have this false comfort voice that comes next, usually. And it's a conversation between this worried voice and this false comfort voice. So the false comfort voice says, oh, it's okay, worried voice. We're going to be fine. You know, so next time, let's do A, B, and C to prevent it from happening. And I know you don't like what's happening. It's going to be okay. Maybe you can talk to your friend, or let's think through, you know, why this happened. And so false comfort is called false because it's trying to comfort. But remember what we talked about, what we think about persists. We're giving power to these negative thoughts that are coming our way. It's not making it go away just by engaging in that back and forth conversation. Although it's trying to comfort, it's not the facts, it's not true. You're going to be fine. You're a nice person. You didn't mean for this to happen. But engaging in that conversation with the worried voice part of ourselves makes it seem as if it's true in reality and they're just trying to cope with it, right? So the wise mind is the voice that we want to come from when we're approaching our negative beliefs and our negative thoughts. And our wise mind is non-judgmental, calm. And the way the wise mind works is it says things like, yes, we can't make our doubts go away. There is uncertainty in this world, but those thoughts aren't important. And it's reminding the false comfort voice and the worried voice that these thoughts don't even matter, these bad thoughts. And so once you realize that your worried voice and comfort voice are having a conversation, then your wise mind comes in, just like that short example I gave you. I would spend an hour between worried voice and false comfort about my friendship situation I had. And it would shift my mood. I would feel sick to my stomach. I would feel regret. I would feel like, well, it's their fault, not mine. I'm just being real here. I went through this whole thing. But instead, what happened on Monday was wise mind. It's just a shirt. That's the truth. The shirt has nothing to do with what happened. And so wise mind says things like, you're listening to the junk channel of these thoughts, what's going on. And knowing that the first thoughts that come your way are usually things that are fear-based because it didn't even go through the logical cortex, right? Remember I talked about the brain science part of it? And so wise mind knows that those anxious feelings that come from that first signal firing are not the same thing as really being in danger or really thinking that those thoughts and beliefs are true. It's almost like we have to filter through those first initial thoughts with the wise mind and not let these thoughts become a part of our thinking pattern and our identity of who we are. Once you start coming from the wise mind, then your mind becomes less sticky with these unwanted intrusive thoughts. And the intrusive thoughts stop having a whoosh kind of immediate urgency kind of feeling. And so here is an example. A worried voice might say something like, I think I might have hit someone with my car. What if someone is laying there? What if someone is hurting? I'll be prosecuted. Someone's going to die because of me. Why would I do this? What should I do? And that's the worried voice. And the false comfort voice comes in and says, well, look in your rearview mirror. Do you see traffic still moving? People would stop if someone was hurt. It's probably okay. You've been driving for years and never hurt anyone. And worried voice says, but what if this time it's different? What if I did hit someone? And the wise mind comes in and says, wait a second. Your stress level is high right now. You're letting your worried voice and your false comfort voice argue. This isn't helpful. You had a thought. Everyone has thoughts. A thought is just a thought. Carry on. And of course, if you really hit someone, you would know. But generally, I'm talking about the thoughts that come our way. And they get stuck in our brain because hitting someone and then leaving the scene of a crime is against most people's moral compass. And so that's why it becomes unwanted, because it's like sticks in our stomach and our brain, like, oh, that's not the person I am. I wouldn't do something like that. And here is another example of the way like worried voice and false comfort voice goes back and forth. So I'm changing the scenario a little bit so it's more like something maybe we've all or could experience. But it says, I just found out my bio dad died at a young age of a heart attack. And that could be me. Look right now at my breath and how heavy I'm breathing. That could be a sign of a heart attack. And that's the worried voice, right? The false comfort voice comes in and says, we just went to the cardiologist. She said everything is fine. And the worried voice says, but things can happen suddenly. Look at that runner who died while in a race. False comfort voice comes in and says, we can't be going to the doctor all the time. She already thinks we are hypochondriacs. Let's just take her pulse and blood pressure every day, and we'll feel better when it's okay. Worried voice comes in. How can we be sure the machine is working right? I think maybe several times a day we should take it. False comfort. Don't be silly. Of course it's working. Okay, let's do it twice a day. Worried voice. Don't just humor me. This is important. We could die. And false comfort voice says, you just need to trust things will be okay. And worried voice says, there must be a reason I keep thinking about death. I can't trust anyone. What if I have a sixth sense? And so at times our brain just has these conversations back and forth and engaging with the worry mind and the false comfort. False comfort has good intentions. It's trying to protect and, pass the conversation to the past, put it in the past, make it go away. But just by engaging all this makes it seem like it makes new neural pathways in the brain that this is a real issue here, that maybe I am having symptoms of a heart attack and there's facts. My bio father died at a young age, so that means me too, right? And ignoring all the other facts that, our behaviors and health and eating and exercise and all those things can influence. It's not just genetics. Although in this business, I've learned genetics is a real thing. It does impact us a lot. But false comfort and worried voice don't always look at all the facts. They're paying attention to the feelings, the worry, the fear that is sent from those first messages after a trigger, not through, remember I was saying, through the cortex, the logical side of our brain. And so wise mind could come in and say, this is junk. Y'all are giving too much power to these thoughts. It's just a thought, let it pass. And then there's some other strategies in just a little bit that adds to the wise mind. Let's see if I want to say anything else about that. I think that's it for the wise mind. So paying attention, are you letting your worried voice and false comfort voice argue back and forth too much about negative beliefs you might have about yourself, situations about yourself, or those thoughts? Because if you're doing that, like I said, you're making those neural pathways that make it seem like it's reality. And engaging in that makes it very difficult and makes it stick as if that is the reality of life. And so strategy 2 I wanted to talk about is, the authors of that book talk about their 6 steps to manage intrusive thoughts. And uh, they talk about recognizing the thoughts, accepting and allow the thoughts, let time pass. And that's because you want to make sure the messages are being sent through the cortex, and then proceed with your day. And I'll talk about more about this. Um, if you look at the bottom, it says Robert just ate fries, tacos, and pie. So Robert is the R, then the J, 8 is the A, F for the fries, T for tacos, and pie. Remember all those sentences you learn, like, please let my dear Aunt Sally, I don't know, I hadn't thought about it in years. I probably should have thought about it before now, but it's one of those sentences to help you remember. The R is to recognize, the J is just thoughts, A is to accept and allow, F is to float and feel, T, let them pass, and P is to proceed. So what this means is, for R, when your thoughts come your way, we're going to recognize, pause, and label the thoughts by saying something like, right now, I'm having a thought that intrudes my mind to awareness. It's an intrusive thought. It has caught my attention because so you're pausing and you're recognizing that it's a thought. That's the awareness piece. Then we have the J, step 2, just thoughts. Remind yourself that. And that's what my brain did with that t-shirt situation. And you say things like, these thoughts are automatic and are best left alone. We're not going to engage with our worried voice or our false comfort voice. We're just going to let it left alone. The step 3 is the A, and this is accept and allow. And this is where you don't try to push them away. You allow yourself to explore the ideas or content of your thoughts. You're working to tolerate whatever those are. And then step 4 is the, let's see, the T, let time pass. I'm sorry. Step 4 is the F, float and feel. And what you're gonna do is imagine yourself or being above the thoughts. You don't become the thoughts, you float and you feel them. You bring yourself back to the present. What are you smelling and hearing and sensing? So you're feeling it, because we have to feel things to get through things, but we're not becoming these thoughts or these feelings. You're just noticing. And then step 5, let time pass. Don't urge it on. Observe your anxiety or distress. Be a little bit curious. Like, where's this coming from? What's this about? And, allow the thoughts to pass. And then step 6 is proceed even while you're having the thoughts, continue doing whatever you are doing. And as if they're not a big deal. When we have that first firing of a trigger and that adrenaline rush and our shift in mood, that 911 alert, something's wrong, or you're not safe, or people are thinking these things about you, it's almost as if it puts a great sense of urgency that we have to do something or feel something. And it's so wrong, it's horrible. But that feeling of urgency is misleading. And so it's working through these steps that you don't have a sense of urgency. What I think about is when I get a text or an email and it makes me feel a certain way and I want to respond right away, right? And what I've learned is you wait, you observe, you let it pass, and then I usually feel a little different a few minutes later, an hour later. Sometimes I have to sleep on things. And it's giving the brain time to process what this stuff really means. And then, okay, so that's pretty much what I want to say about the 6 steps. So we understand now about the conversation our voices have in our brain, and that we don't want to give the time of day to our thoughts. And our wise mind has the knowledge that they're just thoughts that are coming our way. And now we know that there's some steps to help us manage that. We're recognizing it's just a thought, accepting them, learn to tolerate what's going on, but we're going to float and feel above it, bring ourselves back to the present, try not to be in the past, because in the past and in the future is really where anxiety lives. In the moment, in the present, we're mostly safe, unless we're out in the jungle and a tiger's chasing us. But generally, in the present moment, right now, you're all sitting in your chairs or your couches, you're safe in the present. And hopefully, I'm not evoking much fear or anxiety in this current present moment. But when we have that anxiety, it's usually about the past or the future. And fear is anxiety. I mean, fear is in the past and the future as well. And so in this present moment, we bring yourself to the present, let the thought pass, and proceed with what you're doing. And then remembering Robert just ate fries, tacos, and pie, and that can help with the acronym of the 6 steps. All right. So many of you might have heard about exposure. We can face our fears with exposure. What this means is deliberately thinking about those intrusive thoughts. And the reason why is because if we try to avoid it, they persist more. It makes it a bigger deal than it really is. It makes the size of the problem bigger than it really is. But if we expose ourselves to these thoughts, we learn to tolerate, and it gives time to process through the cortex, where we really understand what's going on and what it really is. It helps the thoughts feel manageable. And research shows that exposure is the active therapeutic approach for overcoming anxiety. Because really, acceptance and tolerance are great coping skills and interventions. It sounds simple, and I think acceptance and tolerating things, being able to tolerate a situation, is underrated and overlooked in therapy a lot of times. Acceptance is a coping skill. Learning to accept the situations, like the first steps, y'all have heard that, of being able to be like, okay, this is going on right now, and not fighting what's going on. And so we can work to make meaning and problem solve. And we're not living in that emotional state. We're moving ourselves to the logical state to be able to approach the situation with facts. So let's see. I like this statement the author said. We're moving from that the thoughts are uncomfortable, and so I find them intolerable, to they are uncomfortable, but I can tolerate it. We're making new pathways in our brain about what the truth is, the facts. They're rewriting our brain, really. And so with this whole exposure thing, it's like, I need to put my shirt on and expose myself to the shirt and those thoughts. That's something I could do. All right, let's see. So the next one is a great strategy. If you know me, I don't have the greatest sense of humor. That is one of the things I asked my cousins at dinner in Denver, was like, are y'all funny? We were already comparing our noses and looking at each other in our hands, but I'm like, I don't get jokes. And what I think is funny, no one else does. And but I do get being absurd, like the contradictions of things. I love that. And so so what this strategy says is to use some humor. Diana, someone's trying to be omitted, Deidre. Okay, so what it says to do is kind of like diminish the power of the thoughts and the negative beliefs. And so you put a twist to it, make something funny about it. You sing a tune. The authors of this book talk about putting your thoughts, while you're thinking the thoughts, saying happy birthday, change the words, and making it absurd. They talk about thinking about the image and repeating the thought, going up and down the stairs. So you're really just making it silly and using humor to give yourself like a sense of control over the thing. That's what I think it does. The authors didn't talk about this, but knowing psychology and the way we work as human beings, a lot of times we have problems when we feel like we don't have control or a say in a situation. And so this is what I think humor and these tips, it gives us a control over these thoughts. We like, ah, you're just a thought. You're just a shirt. That's, you know, that's kind of, it reminds me of like when I went through the stages of my bio father not responding. And when I heard he knew and I was sad, well, then I came up with this thing like, how rude. And I know it's not too funny. Remember, I told y'all what I think is funny, other people don't. But anytime I thought about the situation, I would say, how rude. How that's just rude. And I use that word rude because I think it's a funny word. And it made the situation that hurt I was feeling like, ah, I have the power and I can label this for what it really is, because it is rude for not, at least saying not responding at all. And so that's what I did in that situation. So this is a strategy that we can use and get some power, take some control back from some of these things that are going on in our brains. All right. I like the word ridiculous. I'll say that too. How ridiculous. So label these things what they really are. All right, strategy 5, it's running a movie, and it's like there's EMDR is a great therapeutic approach. And if you are struggling, I think EMDR can help all of us. It rewrites the neural pathways in our brain by stimulating the brain in different ways with attaching to some positive thinking stuff going on at the same time. It's almost like rewriting the bad experiences we've had. And so there is an approach in EMDR called the future template. And so it helps individuals prepare mentally for future situations by visualizing yourself successful outcomes, and it reduces anxiety and gives you some resilience. Research shows, they did a research study and they had someone experience something and they put those nodes on the brain and looked at the colors of the brain and what parts of the brain were responding. Then they had someone not do the actual thing, but visualize in their mind the thing, and the brain lit up in the same way. So the research shows that visualizing something is just as impactful if you experience it. So like in attachment work, and I know a lot of us have issues with attachment for whatever different reasons, like imagining a maternal figure hug you can be just as impactful as if a real maternal figure in your past hugged you. I mean, it's not the exact same, but it does make new neural pathways in the brain, and as if it's really happening. And so that's why I like this exercise. So what you do is you run a movie in your brain as if something that you are worried about or those unwanted thoughts were going on, you run a movie in your brain as if a perfect world, a perfect thing was going to happen. So let's say that you're worried about the next visit you're having with a biological family member. So you actually sit down and you think about, okay, I'm driving up, I'm going to feel good, and I'm going to have music playing, my favorite song, and it's sunny outside, and I get out, and this is how I'm going to behave and talk. And you're almost like rewriting the pathways in your brain as if it were to happen. So you're giving yourself some positive feelings and beliefs that are going on. And then you run the movie where you add some challenging thoughts like, what if they don't like me? What if I have lettuce in my teeth? I don't know. Whatever your worry is about this experience, you add that as a plot twist in your perfect movie, but then you use the tools that you know in right after to respond. So like, oh, I have, you know, spinach in my teeth and I'm going to look a full, oh, no, I'm not, because, I accept me. I know I don't know, that's a dumb example. Sorry, guys, but you run the movie with the challenge, the difficult situation, and you become like your own hero and play out the movie in a positive way. So you're visualizing all these things and turning these negative thoughts into positive experiences. If you want, while you're running this movie, a part of EMDR is that like some bilateral stimulation. You can tap your knees and slow as you're running the movie, and research shows in EMDR that that helps build some new brain neural pathways. You have to work to tolerate any uncomfortableness that comes through this experience, and try not to react with urgency, because you can get through things. You know the truth about yourself and who you are, and getting through those things. Okay, so that's running a movie. And final thoughts from our wise mind, that our wise mind is there to help us get through any difficult times. And we're going to work to stop fueling those negative thoughts and negative beliefs. We do have to feel things. We have to face them and release it. We can't outrun our problems, but we can work to stop our thoughts from bombarding ourselves with these negative thoughts over and over by not entertaining them, and using some of these strategies that we talked about today. And then here's how you can get in touch with me. I have a webpage, and I am in Texas. And so if you're in Texas, then we could do some therapy if needed. And but I also do coaching for those outside of Texas. And here's my email. I would love if y'all could go to my Facebook group, not group, but Facebook page for my business. It's Carla Barnes LPC. If you type that in, you'll find me there. I put lots of different tips and things for mental health to help us, and feel good messages. I think we are stronger together. I know that's a cliche statement, but it is so true, especially in a divisive society. We have more things in common than different, and we need to honor our differences. But being together, you can find me on my Facebook page, and you can reach out to me. And I thank you today for allowing me to present on some intrusive thoughts, and knowing really that you, although we can't control what thoughts come our way, we definitely now have some strategies to realize that they're just junk, and from the most part, and that we are going to be okay. And so thank you again. And I look forward to anybody who wants to reach out. I look forward to getting to know any of y'all more. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carla. That was absolutely wonderful. There's so much information in there. I'm just
Well, it's like I said earlier, it's weird to me that it's not a conversation. But I'm glad to present. And even when I teach in a group, I'm usually like, okay, so what's an example that you struggle with? Okay, let's practice our fault. What would your worried voice be? What would your false comfort voice and your wise mind? So I hope that those listening were thinking of their own struggles and things to be able to use this information to process. But I'm also excited to hear what y'all got from me now that we have time for questions.
right. I'm going to stop the recording.